Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and today we have special guest, Dr. Tara Chalakani. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Guys, Tara is a really interesting guest, one of the most interesting we've had. We were just talking about her podcast and all of the exciting new topics she's got coming in season 2, but Tara is the CEO of Preferred Behavioral Health. And it's basically a leading health organization here in New Jersey. And some of the topics we're going to cover today are going to be really exciting. I'm excited to get to know you more and how you're helping people in the local community.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And so tell us about the mission of Preferred Behavioral.
Well, it's simply to save lives and to change lives across New Jersey. We do so much. I know we were just talking about it a minute ago. We address all mental health issues, social determinants of health, substance use issues across the spectrum and a variety of programs. And there's really just no way to capture that aside from just taking it down to its simplest form, because that's what we get up and do every day.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at your mission. Your mission is to change lives and to save lives across the state. And we were talking about some of these individualized services that you provide and how critical they are, and some that you're kind of seeing more and more of lately. Can you tell us about some of the specialties and what you're seeing a little bit more within your healthcare system?
Sure. I mean, we at Preferred Behavioral Health Group and all organizations across the state have been dealing with really significant mental health issues for decades upon decades. But clearly the pandemic has exacerbated so much of addiction issues and mental health. But what we're seeing and what we've been receiving more funding for, and it's quite necessary, is programs for children, K through 12. In public and charter schools is one of the initiatives that we're really focusing on. And, you know, what we're finding is the mental health needs of children have just skyrocketed, and the acuity and the severity of what we're seeing has increased as well. We're seeing suicides in children younger than ever before, suicidal thoughts in kindergartners, you know, at a time where you should be innocent and spontaneous. And, you know, so we really need to pay attention to our kids and take their behavior seriously, their complaints seriously, the way we would if they had a tummy ache. If their heart is aching or if they feel sad, we need to dig in a little deeper.
Yeah. What are some, and, you know, hopefully I'm sure you know the answers to all these questions I'm going to ask you, but we have a lot of parents out there that watch the podcast. They're part of a professional community that are probably in shock when they hear these stories, as I bet some of the parents are as well.
Sure.
Obviously, you just gave us some advice, but what other advice would you have for parents on just, you know, creating that space for children where they feel safe to talk to you about what's going on in their lives?
Well, you know, I think the bottom line is, and we've heard it before, that it's really okay to not be okay. And we need to make those conversations more commonplace in our society. And just like I said, if your child wakes up and says, you know, their tummy hurts or their head hurts or they don't feel good, we're going to pull out a thermometer. We're going to say, show me where it hurts. And I think that we have to approach feelings with the same kind of curiosity, you know, like what's going on, or, you know, how long have you been feeling sad, or, you know, more probing questions, open-ended questions that demand answers. So, I mean, I think that's a good first step. And like anything, we have to model it. I meet so many people, Nicole, that are afraid to show emotions, or they don't want their children to know that they're sad, or and for what gain? You know, what are we teaching them?
Right.
We're not robots.
So you think it's good for people to see that, your kids especially, to see that you're not having a great day, or that, you know, you're a little stressed out from work. And I guess sometimes it's probably healthy to communicate that versus like take it out on them and you know, stop talking right now. I'm, you know, tell them what you're feeling rather than kind of expressing it the wrong way. So, you know, do you think, you said COVID, right? COVID was one of the things that may have exacerbated this. How about our you know, the social media world, and what would you attribute, you know, the mental health issues to from that perspective?
Well, I mean, that's a huge contributing factor. And I joke around with people and say that before the pandemic, I mean, that was something that I was hyper focused on professionally and clinically, and went around and gave really compelling, educational speeches and seminars about the dangers of devices and social media. But the world shut down and everything changed. I mean, little kids were home on devices, and really that hasn't gone away. And even just this morning, I was talking to someone in the tech industry who was telling me they were doing work in a school, and they walked into the classroom and every student had a laptop in front of them. And they thought, wow, like things have really changed. So there's really no escaping it.
No, there's not.
But our brains are not computers, and they were not wired to, have this light and this screen in front of us. And we're not meant to continually be stimulated and processing information at that speed. So, I mean, it's definitely made a huge, huge impact on how we communicate, how we show our feelings or not show our feelings.
Yeah. And sometimes they show, like you'll see on social media, the videos of the kids that are like just swiping like the air. There's nothing there. That we're having like total mental breakdowns when you take their device away. Yeah. And so your advice to parents would be, how long should a child be hanging out on their device, would you say? Is there a limit?
Well, I mean, the American Academy of Pediatrics once said that it's an hour per year of age. But obviously that's becomes excessive as they get older. But, just like modeling emotions, we have to get off of our devices. I know I'm on mine, but I have to say, and, I never want to be a hypocrite, that there's no phones at my dinner table, no phones if we're out in a restaurant. It doesn't matter what's happening. And so it starts with us.
It does.
Really.
Man, you know what? We're on the hook.
We
no
are.
getting off of it. We have to set that model behavior.
For sure.
I think that's
or
important.
Explain, I'm on this because I'm going to hop off in a minute, instead of just seeing this, know. Because I do that too. If my kids say, well, you're on your phone, I'm like, okay, but I'm finishing up a meeting or I'm sending an email to a client and then I'm done for the night, so
creating those boundaries
again and talking about it. Yeah. Like communicating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting, because even though our children are younger, we still kind of want to have that respectful relationship with them, where we're letting them know what's going on, how we're feeling, what we're thinking. This was a big topic because I think it's really important. And if you guys have questions about behavioral health in children, obviously, we'll have all Dr. Tara's information here on the comment section below and in the description. But, one of the things we were talking about as well in the mental health world is addiction. Yes. And what are you seeing in the world of addiction nowadays?
Well, I mean, the biggie is fentanyl, which I'm sure anyone who has access to news at all knows that it's a huge issue, not just with street drugs being laced with fentanyl, but people having an addiction to that substance itself. It's cheaper, it's more accessible. So, I mean, that's a huge trend. But, the oldies but goodies, and I say that, facetiously. Yes. Alcoholism obviously is still an issue. And that is also something that we saw peak during the pandemic and continued. I mean, people were home mixing Ina Gartner Cosmos at home in the middle of the day. And, so it hasn't gone away. And I mean, traditional street drugs, obviously the legalization of marijuana, opened up a door to access. And so, I mean, none of those things have gone away for us in the treatment community. But, with addiction comes so many other parameters. It can, once the negative consequences snowball, it could end up in, loss of your supports, your relationships, lack of housing, food insecurity. So it creates this whole other snowball of social determinants of health. And, at Preferred, we're holistic and integrated. So we don't look at, oh, you're here for this, let's just check that. It's like, no, let's look at everything, because very often we're finding, with someone with chronic substance use, well, now we have to think about, are you at risk for hepatitis or HIV? And, looking at that big picture, do you have enough food in your cabinet? So it really ends up trickling into all of the other domains of life.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Because, when you think about it, I was saying before, I mean, I don't know many families that don't have someone in it that has some kind of an addiction issue, someone within that family network that did or that does. And when you think about alcohol specifically, it's such a part of our social fabric, right? I was watching, it was a TED Talk that said, alcohol is the only drug you have to defend not taking, right? Like if you go out to dinner with someone and you're not drinking, they're like, what's the matter? Yeah, what's going on? Right. Why aren't you drinking? Like what's happening? What are you gonna have water? Like don't cheers me because I don't want to cheers you with the water in your hand.
Bad luck.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
see, it's
sure.
It's interesting. It's and it wasn't always like that. Alcohol wasn't always such a social fabric the way it is today. And I feel like there's a fad that's starting to shift from that perspective too, where people are stepping away from it a little bit more.
I agree. I feel like not drinking has become the new drinking. And I'm very social and have to attend a lot of events like I'm sure you do. When I see more mocktails and more non-alcoholic options, which is nice. But the funny thing is what we're seeing right now, I think at this moment in time, cigarette smoking is at a historic low.
Yes.
Like nobody smokes, but now vaping is the new smoking. And with kids, it's really a huge issue. And there's so many horrendous chemicals inside in vape liquid that we don't even know the half of it. Like we don't even know what's coming down the pike for us.
Yeah, I was just asking my nephew that the other day. I'm like, are kids in your class or in your school, is anyone vaping, right? Because just think about that as a kid. I mean, cigarettes were appealing to many teenagers back in the day when I was younger. I had friends that smoked as teens.
Did. Yeah.
And then you think about like adding these amazing electronic cigarettes, bubble gum, cotton candy, all these flavors and styles and
tiny.
Yep.
Small, you don't have to hide a pack of cigarettes.
Doesn't smell. Yeah. All these advantages. So
totally.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you really have to, back to modeling behavior, right? When you're talking about children that are going to do something, it's talking about those things, like you said, like, hey, is anyone doing those things? Like, they're extremely addicting. I think they're more addicting than cigarettes are. Those electronic cigarettes, right?
They really are.
So it's something to be aware of. I think everyone needs to, and you can't really detect it. So
no. Schools are implementing detectors in bathrooms because bathrooms have become like the vape room. It's not about going to the bathroom. So a lot of schools now are investing into high-tech detection systems, which of course is an expense. And but it's an issue.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I'm sure it is. So tell us about some other things that you could find at Behavioral Health. And then I want to talk about your podcast a little bit.
Well, our website is preferredbehavioral.org. It's really a one-stop shop for family members, people really seeking the help for themselves. And we have just such a vast array of programs from job coaching to residential services to a food pantry to case management. We're in the home, in the schools, in the communities. So, I mean, and my tagline is we do everything but have a hospital. So if there's anything mental health, substance use related, we've got it. And we're here to help.
That's great. Well, look, in this world, it's so important. We talk about it in sales and in business all the time. Your mindset is truly everything, right? And I say a lot of times, like if your thoughts determine your life, right? If your thoughts kind of create that pattern and that pace in which you succeed in your life or your level of happiness, there's quite literally nothing more important than what you're doing, right? Your mindset of where you are. And I'm sure there's so many tips and tricks you could give people to just maintain that healthy balance.
Yes.
And, I think this stuff like that's for everybody, right? It's not, you don't have to be experiencing a major crisis or something extremely traumatic to go and visit someone like you.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely not. And, in my own private practice outside of Preferred, sometimes my clients will walk in and they'll say, I have nothing bad to say today. And I say, good. I don't want you to. Like, you don't have to come here.
Like, I'm kind of exhausted listening to all this anyway. I needed one client to give me a break.
Yeah, but it's like, I want to know what's good because whatever's going on, we want to perpetuate that. We want to keep that going. We don't want to only limit this time to bad things.
Right.
We want to, explore wellness and positivity.
Right.
So I couldn't agree more. Everybody needs a therapist.
Right. And so, tell us about your private practice. How does it just aligns with Preferred Behavioral as well, and you see clients separately?
It's separate.
Okay.
My work at Preferred is higher level administrative. I mean, I'm the CEO, and so I have a lot of responsibility there, but direct care is not in my scope. And I've always had a private practice on the side regardless, because I love the work, and that's why I'm in this field.
That's great.
And I never want to be the leader that's not doing.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
because I do feel, and I've seen it over my career, where you kind of move up this ladder, but you get further away from why you entered that space to begin with.
Yeah.
And I've always been entrepreneurial, even when I wasn't in the behavioral health space, but I love it. It's small scale for me because my time is limited, but I do have 2 amazing therapists that work in my practice, and we're doing good things.
And so how do you, I got to ask you, because you probably hear a lot of difficult things from people, and you're helping them to get through it. How do you maintain your own sanity through the process?
Sure. Well, I mean, part of the education of becoming a psychotherapist and licensed counselor is you learn how to have healthy boundaries, right? Understand that this is yours, not mine, but I'm here to walk the path with you.
Right.
And I think just with time and practice, and you learn how to kind of separate the two. I mean, I love my clients. I care for them. And when they're hurting, it's not like when they walk out the door, I forget about them, but there has to be some sense of boundaries. And I take care of myself, and you have to. And at Preferred, we have a very trauma-informed culture, so we understand how that all can impact us. And so we really promote self-care. And our mantra is, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I feel, authenticity is all I've got. So I walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
I take care of myself. Before I start my day, there's movement, hydration, spirituality, before I even take my shower.
All the things to just set that foundation.
Yeah. It's otherwise you can't do this, like if you want to do this work, you have to do the work.
Oh yeah.
On yourself and with yourself.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's the lesson for your clients many times too, is the same thing. And whether you could be in leadership, you could be a school teacher, right? Is anyone that's in that position where you're dealing with a lot of emotions from people and things that you're trying to help them manage, you have to take care of yourself first, right? And make sure that you're available to do that for them. And then you kind of have to leave that on the table. Like whatever they were feeling in that moment, don't let it but don't let it impact the rest of your day or your week. And that's hard. I could say that as a leader, it's very hard. If I'm in the middle of having a great day and someone calls me on my team and they're like, hey, everything's going wrong. It's hard to kind of step back out of that again.
It is.
And get into the space you were in before.
For sure.
So
So
I commend you, because I'm sure it's not easy what you do, especially back to back, knowing that you're going to hear that. So kudos to the happy clients that come to visit you.
I know. God bless them.
Yeah. We need them. We might have to just come see you and just talk to you about our great day sometimes. And so I want to talk about your podcast, because it's very cool and very exciting. Tell us how this got started.
Okay, so Gina Simeone, Gina Sim, and I are the co-hosts of the Welloff Podcast. And I love our story because I think it's just a testament to never discount an interaction, never discount, meeting someone by quote unquote coincidence, because there are none. But Gina and I met at a networking event, and we can't remember which one it was, but we had an immediate liking for one another and kind of stayed connected through different business circles. And long story short, about a year ago, Preferred has a huge golf outing every year. It's our biggest fundraiser, and it's September 16th. And I said, are you coming? Because she introduced me to golf, and she's like, I'm not. She said, but I have good news and I have bad news. She said, the good news is I got a job with iHeartMedia. And I was like, that is amazing. Yeah. But she said, the bad news is I'm moving to Connecticut. And I was so sad because I'm like, I'm never going to see her again.
No, yeah.
And not long after, she reached out and she said, iHeart wants me to start a podcast and I would love for you to be the co-host. And the rest is history.
That's
and
awesome.
I love every minute of it. I love our energy because we're alike in ways and different in ways. And I think that, the synergy is really great.
It complements. You guys complement each other. I've listened to some of your episodes and completely agree. I think that you do have a good dichotomy and a nice flow with one another.
Yes. And so it's been great.
That's awesome. And so iHeartRadio, that's an awesome platform to start something on. A great overall network, right? And so the studio is out in
Hartford, Connecticut.
In Hartford?
So when we film in studio, we're in Hartford, but the majority of the episodes are Zoom because I'm in New Jersey and she's in Connecticut. Right. But any opportunity we have to be together in the same physical space, we jump on it. But it's really great. And, our focus, our tagline is health, wealth, and live in top shelf. And it's really a focus on how mental health and physical health is not separate and how those things lead into a rich life and not necessarily your bank account. And we've had, a really wide array of guests and we're excited to, of course, welcome you to season 2 as well.
Looking forward to it.
And, at the end of the day, it's never really about the money.
Yeah.
It's about quality of life. It's so about the people that you have beside you, that are really the parameters of success. And we just hope that when people listen, whether it's your industry or not, that you walk away with that same feeling that success is not linear. And there are many different parameters and I guess barometers rather of success.
Yeah. Because you can have all the success monetarily in the world and wake up every day and be very unhappy, right?
Yeah.
You feel very stressed. So when I hear top shelf and I think about some of the episodes that you're going to have coming up, I hear like that's about a lifestyle of living, right?
Yes.
More than it is the kind of alcohol you order at the bar.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Or the hotel you stay in when you go on vacation. And we've had so many different guests, but one of them, we always ask, what does Welloff mean? What does your top shelf life look like? And one of our guests, he's the founder of Fontana Candles, which is a non-toxic. He had lost a significant amount of weight. And he said, it's being able to bend down and tie my shoes. Wow. And I think those are the things that we lose sight of. And especially younger people, it's about a car or a house, and not necessarily younger, it's older people too.
Sure.
But,
get caught up.
A car's not going to keep you warm at night. It's not going to, have your back when you're depressed and need preferred behavioral health or Dr. Tara, so I love it. I enjoy every second of it. I know Gina does too. And we're learning a lot from our guests, as I'm sure you can relate to. And it's a great experience.
Yeah. So what would you say? And then we're going to hear about some of the teasers of season 2. I'm excited.
You're going to hear it here first.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, well, when you think about living like this authentic life, this top shelf life, what would your advice be? Like, what does it start with? How do you, we sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why are we doing what we're doing every day? We talk about, buying a car or, what is it that's driving us? But what does it start with? How do you live a top shelf life?
Well, Nicole, I think the first thing is that none of it is external. That it starts in here. And if I line up 500 people or if I gathered all my clients together, everyone would say, I want to be happy, right? Like that's everyone's wish. But the happiness looks different. Like what I might say could be different than what you say, but it's not something we acquire. It's not something that we get to. We have to decide. We have to choose it. Right. We have to focus on what we have versus what we don't, or who's around us versus who isn't. Yeah. Because when we have that, the rest is gravy. When we don't have that, it doesn't matter. Once I'll hear people say, oh, I want to hit 6-figure salary. Well, then they get it and they're no different than they were here. Yes. Or I want to move to Florida. Well, you're just packing all your stuff up and yourself and just putting it in a different spot, but nothing's changed in here or here. So that's really the first step, to find that peace within, and then your compass will guide you in the right direction. Right. The other piece is, when I work with people, whether it's just in my life or professionally, career comes up a lot. And it's always about money, money, money. Listen, I get it. I have a mortgage, got a car payment, the whole nine, college tuition, I get it. Yeah. But if that's going to be your only motivator, you are going to suffer. You are going to sweat, bleed, and really be in misery if it's only about that.
It sounds cliche, right? Because of the people that will tell you oh, if you love what you do, it's like you never worked a day in your life. That's right. And to your point, right? Everyone out there has financial obligations, and we all need to make a living. And the reality is money does provide freedom and flexibility, and it may take some stress off of your plate, but it intrinsically needs to be about something more that drives you every day, that wakes you up every day, and that makes you want to get up and do what you do.
That's right. Serve your purpose, and it will serve you.
Right, exactly. And some people might struggle to find what is your purpose, right? And I'm sure there's exercises and things that you could think about that'll take you to that point where you could say, you know what, I love helping people, or for myself, I have such a passion for real estate and for people reaching their full potential. I think that's so exciting for me, whether that's the potential of them buying their first home or their first investment property, or if it's just them hitting a great sales goal and they're on a team and they're just working to build their business. Sure. I think that when people hit that potential of what they really are and what they really want to achieve, if you could be a part of that, and I'm sure you feel the same excitement when you have a client that comes in one shape and then they come out completely different.
There's nothing better. Yeah. There really isn't. Yeah. And it's joy would be the only way that I could really describe it, and I know that everyone is capable of it. You just need the right environment to blossom. Yeah. So think of those little moments where you feel that, sometimes giving a gift to somebody, and you start to say wow, it really feels really good to give something, right? Almost more so than receiving. It feels nice to see the smile on someone's face when you think of them. It's similar to anything that you're doing in your life. Find those little moments where you really feel true joy, and then figure out kind of how to link that all together. That's how you can live a top shelf life, right? For sure. When you're waking up loving what you're doing. Absolutely. So season 2. Tell us about season 2. What's in store? Okay, folks, you're going to hear it here first. Yeah. So we have so many amazing guests. We have someone with really significant lived experience with an eating disorder. We have a film producer of a horror movie franchise, which is, we've already recorded that episode, but it's adorable because I am a big scaredy cat and I do not like horror movies, and Gina loves them. Oh, so it's back to the dichotomy. Exactly, which is really funny. We have a star of an HBO Max series, which we'll announce later. Just super, super interesting people. Wow. That's exciting. Yeah. So I was looking at the list and I reposted this. So I'm curious about some of the topics. So Ozempic, that's a huge new popular weight loss drug, I guess you'd call it, right? It is. It's a pharmaceutical. Yeah. And so tell us about Ozempic. It was originally used for diabetes. Okay. And even though I have a medical background, I don't know all of the, nuances of the drug, but, one of the side effects is it curbs your appetite and, really was meant to help with insulin levels, but now it's being used as a weight loss drug. And there is more and more research being done that it can help with addictions as well, because people who take it have found that they don't want to drink alcohol at all.
Yeah.
So what I'm reading in literature is that eventually we're probably going to be seeing it used mainstream in recovery centers and substance use services. So it's here to stay for sure. And I've even read, physicians who were taking it and quote unquote microdosing just to kind of stay healthy because, it's kind of like sounding like a wonder drug, but we want to talk about it and dispel any myths and, have a credible healthcare provider really discuss what the benefits are, what the risks, who should be taking it, and really destigmatize it, because I think Oprah Winfrey probably was like, the most vocal that her whole life she struggled with her weight and obesity is a medical condition. Yeah, it's genetic.
Right.
So
and there's probably like a psychological component to obesity as well, I would
without
imagine,
a doubt, and body image issues. So it's like, why wouldn't you take something? Because obviously diets don't work. They don't last. So it's really interesting. So we're going to really kind of open up the box and talk about that.
So, and I think a lot of people, everybody probably knows someone that has taken Ozempic in the last 6 months. Yes. And I've noticed that too, that it curbs, anyone that's taking it doesn't want to drink. Right. And by the way, restaurants are going to have to start changing how they serve food.
They already
you ever
have
with a bunch of people that took Ozempic.
Yes.
You're like,
it's no fun.
Why did you even order anything? Like, they need an Ozempic menu.
They do.
Like,
well, restaurants in New York City, more higher end, now charge just to sit there because they're not making money. Right. Because everybody's on Ozempic and no one's like having big, dinner bills.
Yeah. You could serve someone on a little tiny plate this big that has Ozempic and probably get away with charging them something similar, but just give them a little bit. It's so funny.
Right.
It really is. But so restaurants need to be prepared. That'll be a good one to maybe bring on a new restaurant that's serving to Ozempic diners. But so now narcissism, that's like a huge one. Like what a topic. Like you see all these so much of this, like the crime, the murder mystery stuff, the relationship issues. We were just talking about podcasts that really took off that talk about crazy relationship stories. Narcissism's like just one of those things. I don't know if the word gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
But what are you going to be talking about in that space?
So we're going to have a narcissism specialist talk about, her experience. And it is, I find that in my world all the time, people throw diagnoses around, like they use them as adjectives.
He's a narcissist.
Or, oh my God, they're so bipolar, or, even I'm so depressed when they're really not. Like you don't even know what the word means. And I think that when people use the term narcissism, whoever they're talking about probably has some elements of narcissistic personality disorder, but it is a disorder and it's not something that can be cured or treated with medication. It's a therapy only, and it doesn't work unless that person acknowledges and sees that that's who they are and they need help. So
that's got to be like the all-time hardest job in the world, getting a narcissist to admit that they're a narcissist. Yeah, that's interesting. So that's going to be a really, really, I think maybe listeners that are maybe dealing with someone that they might think is a narcissist, would be a good time to tune in to something like that. Wow, that's incredible. And so, and eating disorders, right? Like you see that's something that we were talking about kids in school, and we're talking about social images and social media. Are you focused on anything in particular on that episode that you want to talk about?
So on that episode, we're going to be interviewing Ella Shea, who is the author of her own life story and her journey of eating disorders. And I love her lens because it's an adult who comes to terms with it. It's not like she was treated in adolescence. And eating disorders can be very, very subtle and go under the radar for a long time. And I think that, her story is really inspiring and educational. But, something that I see a lot is that it's just as many boys as girls who struggle with it, but it looks differently. It's more about, I want to be buff, or I want a six pack, or, you know, like I want more definition, or, you know, that kind of stuff. But the habits are not that dissimilar, you know, being hyper focused on appearance and, or working out too much, or, you know, being disordered in the way that they eat. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And now, you know, I remember, you know, magazines and commercials used to be, you know, a big highlight of like advertisements, right? And you're seeing now there's like this whole debate. You see people that are way too skinny, like in Victoria's Secret catalogs or magazines. And now there's people that you'd say like, okay, maybe they might have an eating disorder, but at least it's kind of catering to everyone. It kind of matches the world, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone's one shape or size, right?
No.
People come in all shapes and sizes. And I think that social media really, even for us, you know, in the older demographic, you're looking at like images that aren't really real, right? Just like there's airbrushed images in magazines and commercials. It's the same thing on social media. You can't even tell if someone has a filter on their face, their body, you don't know what you're looking at anymore.
Right.
So people have to kind of realize that. And especially when you think about kids getting on social media, the kind of impact that could have could be substantial.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, that's the other piece of it. It's unrealistic.
Right.
You know, so setting yourself up to try to meet this expectation that really doesn't even exist.
Right.
Or for some people, they'll never have the finances to access it because, I mean, I don't want to throw shade at the Kardashians because they get, you know.
Right. Because they're always welcome on a podcast.
I know. Exactly. Call me Kim.
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, obviously they work a lot on themselves and their appearance is their brand, but they have access to resources that the average person doesn't, you know, whether it's chefs or trainers or surgeons or whatever it is. But, you know, it's a very interesting time that we live in.
Certainly
and, you know, it's so interesting. Someone complimented me recently and the compliment was something that I'm like, I can't believe, like, I'm like, wow. They said to me, oh my God, you look exactly the way that you do in your social media.
You're like, whoa.
And I was like, yeah. And they're like, everyone is so filtered. And I took that as such a high compliment.
It is.
But I'm like, how weird.
Right.
That,
it
like,
is actually when you think
that's
about
a thing. And that I was like, oh,
wow,
you know,
it is
like
really you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's true. You have to, they call it like catfishing now, right? You have to watch out and make sure that, you know, look, it's not every time you want to like wake up and film yourself. And sometimes like a filter might help to, you know, instead of washing your face and doing a full face of makeup, you put a filter on. But like, you know, at the end of the day, I always tell people like, look around you. What you see around you is the reality. Look at, you know, look at how people are dressed, how people look, what kind of shape people are in. Take the average, the last 50 people you saw. That's reality, right? What you're seeing online is not reality.
Sure.
But you know, it's a world we have to be in, right? We have to find our place in this digital world as professionals, as people that love what we do and love the message that we spread. And I think, you know, podcasting is an amazing way to do that. I'm glad that you guys have decided to do a podcast.
Yeah, likewise.
These are great topics. And you know, we want to bring just a bunch of diverse professionals on that are doing different things, because how interesting is it to hear about, you know, if I talk to you about mortgages or real estate, you'd get bored after a while. But talking about something like this is powerful and may even help somebody today.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, social media is an incredible tool. And, you know, I try to use it for good. You know, am I helping someone? And because sometimes I'll read a quote or read something and I'm like, I'm going to share it. You know, it's my thought of the day or tip of the day. And most of the time it's in the morning when I'm ready to leave. So I'm dressed, but sometimes I'm walking and I don't have a stitch of makeup on or I'm in my pajamas. Like, it is what it is. I don't care. This is me.
Right.
But the goal is, if one person hears it and it helps them or they see something differently, or it, you know, just helps them pivot into a more positive mindset, then it was worth it.
It is worth it. Absolutely. And so let's say if there's someone out there today that may want to seek help from someone, what would your advice to them be? I'm sure people think about this, you know, should I find someone to talk to, or, how do I have this? It's probably not easy to talk about something that's going on for you.
Sure.
What would your advice be to them?
Well, first, I always thank them for trusting me. And, I'm grateful for the privilege to help people. And it really depends on where they are. If they're in New Jersey, I will always direct them to Preferred because we have such an enormous network of resources. If it's someone more local, maybe I can help them in my private practice. And, it really depends. But it could be just calling your health insurance company, saying like, who's in my network? It really depends on someone's circumstances, but help is out there. It really is. And there's always Google.
Right. There's always Google.
Mental health services near me, hopefully will pop up.
Yeah.
But it can just start with that.
Right.
And just acknowledging and taking that first step is like half the battle.
Yeah, right. It's always like getting started. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, whenever you're trying to express what you have going on, especially emotional, and to somebody that you don't really know, it could be hard, but it might be easy when you do it with someone you don't know, right?
Right.
And so like, what's that first session with like you? Like when someone's with you in a session, what is it like?
Well, I certainly try to make it as relaxing as possible. My office smells good, sounds good, is comfortable because, you want to really decrease someone's anxieties and their senses from the get-go. And I mean, I think providing that kind of help is something you can't teach. I think most people in my field were natural born counselors. And I always relate it to being a hairdresser. And I always say they were cutting hair in their kitchen before they ever went to school to learn how to do it. You have to have a knack. No one can teach you empathy. No one can teach you warmth. Like it has to really be a God-given gift, in my opinion. But so I try to make people feel as comfortable as possible and be as down to earth as possible. Acknowledge that it's bizarre, to sit down with a total stranger and kind of spill your beans when most of us are told your whole life, don't talk to strangers, or, what happens at home stays at home. You don't say that to people. So, it's kind of a deconditioning process, but, just trying to make it as relaxed and welcoming and non-judgmental or non-threatening as possible.
Yeah, that's great because the environment probably matters so much for people. And, if you're someone out there that really, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be someone that's happy 80% of the time, but just having someone to go to as an outlet to just let off like some of the things that like you might not want to go to your spouse and dump all your issues, or go to your parents who are dealing with their own things, or your friend. Like, I have people close to me that use therapists, and they say they're like, it's just nice to not have to bother everyone around me sometimes, and just have someone else to go talk to, because my friends are tired of hearing me complain about this or talk about this same challenge. So find a safe space where you can go and you have someone that's there really to professionally help you
for sure
and guide you through things. I'm so happy you came today.
It's subjective too.
Yes.
Are the people that love us are not objective. They see us through a different lens, and sometimes it's nice to have a fresh set of eyes to offer perspective and
good point.
Challenge us a little bit. And so
it's like kind of like a business coach, like someone in the business world to have. You might have a manager at work or colleagues, and you could speak to them, but someone that's completely objective, a coach could be someone you go to and you say, hey, what should I do about this situation? How should I handle it? Or how can I get past this? So I'm really excited you came on today.
I'm so happy to be here. And I really commend you because, like you said, you live in the world of mortgages and real estate, which is vital. Yes. I mean, we need these to survive, but it's great to have different perspectives. And so I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Same here. And
any opportunity to talk about mental health is a win for me.
Oh, yeah. And we need it in the mortgage industry. Anyone in it, you guys know that, in mortgage and real estate this year, especially.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us, guys. Go check out the podcast. All of Dr. Tara's contact information is going to be below in the description section. She's always there to help you. And I'm really excited to see what's next to come for you, and excited to be on your podcast too.
Thank you. Same here.
Have a great day, guys.